put the pink stuff back. It's not time yet. There's still a lot of great camping to be had. On this episode, we're going to talk about some of the best reasons that you should consider fall camping. Plus, I got a little something in my head about some YouTubers out there that I want to talk about that Abby hasn't even heard yet. And a whole lot more. This is RV Miles. Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around. You'll find them on highways, in campgrounds, and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. From award-winning tow bars and base plates to a full line of weight-distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and now they have fifth-wheel hitches too. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. Visit blueox.com for more information. The RV lifestyle is about community, and the RV community is at the heart of RV Life. RV Life recently celebrated the 1 millionth trip planned with RV Life Trip Wizard, their excellent trip planning tool for RVers, featuring all the trusted reviews, pictures, and tips from their RV Life campground site. RV Life also features several blog sites and over 20 additional RVing forums to serve the RV community. All this experience and community feedback come together to help create a fantastic RV trip planner and mobile navigation tool collectively called RV Life Pro. RV Life has marked a milestone of over 3 billion miles traveled using RV Life Pro, counting both the planned RV trips and ad hoc navigation with the included RV Safe mobile app. Take 25% off RV Life Pro at the link in the description for this episode. Welcome to episode number 336 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm nervous, and this is... I can't even get through it. And I'm nervous, and we are two RVers who, along with our three boys, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to travel destinations, our national parks, and so much more.
It is fall around here. It's my favorite season. I don't know about you.
Sweater season.
It is my favorite season, even though it is it's still warmish here. Yesterday, we had a true fall day. It didn't break 70, which to me is true fall day. You know, mid 60s temperatures are fantastic. Today it was 75 as a high. That's summer to me. Obviously, people around the country have different definitions of what is summer and what's fall to them. But here in the Midwest, it is sort of that time of year where things are cooling down a bit. You can not run the air conditioner as much, if at all. And unfortunately, it's also the time of year where a lot of campgrounds close.
Yeah. So for a lot of us in the Midwest and up in the East, we start to see this being the winding down of the camping season. But we are here to say, no. It is not time to put that pink stuff in the RV. There is still plenty of camping to be had. We're going to give you our 5 reasons why. But first, before we jump into that, we've got 2 pieces of housekeeping we want to throw your way really quick. First off, there will be no RV Miles podcast next week. RV Miles is headed to Amana, Iowa, which is our second piece of news here. The official start of homecoming begins next week. We are thrilled because there's going to be, I think the final count is we're going to have about 80 of us there, which is perfect. I was so nervous that we were going to have too many people that I wouldn't know how to make sure they were all happily entertained.
It's nice too, because part of what we envisioned this event to be was kind of the end of the camping season here in the Midwest. So it's kind of a celebration of not necessarily this is the last day you camp, but this is when people are kind of ending the camping season. And we thought that it would just be a perfect kind of time. And last year, the weather couldn't have been better.
And it looks to be stunning the week of homecoming. Like we're talking low 70s down into the 40s at night. And we're just really thrilled to welcome so many Mile Marker members, so many new people that are new to RV Miles that we've never met before. And we're going to have all kinds of giveaways. Like we are giving away an entire mattress, not half the mattress, not a quarter of the mattress, not a discount on a mattress. An entire RV mattress has been donated by RVmattress.com to this event. We have gifts from eTrailer. RV Life has jumped in. We've got RV Today magazine there. We've got Liquefied. We're putting together a Quad Cities gift bag. So, you can get a little candy and a little wine. I mean, it's just going to be a really, really good time. It's going to be a great way to kind of kick into the holidays, which then kick into a really busy time for us at RV Miles at the beginning of the year, because we've got Tampa, we've got the RV Super Show, it's Super Show RV season. So this is a really great way to kind of wind down that Midwest camping season. But that does not mean that camping necessarily has to be over.
Yeah, a lot of the campgrounds around here, at least, October 15th is often sort of like the last day, sometimes the end of October. And I think part of that's because the overnight lows can get down to freezing, so a lot of them, they shut their water systems off. Their water systems aren't winterized and they can't run them in the winter, that sort of thing. So it does get harder around here to find a campground, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. And there are lots of places that you can go camp. So here we're going to talk about some of the reasons why we think you should fall camp. And we'll try to give you some tips at the end for how to do it if you are in an area where you're going to be dealing with potentially freezing temperatures at night, but it's not so cold that you need to be completely winterized, all that sort of stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's kick off with the first and most obvious reason. It's that campgrounds thin out. We all know that the big problem that folks have been complaining about for the last several years in the camping industry is that campgrounds are too busy, they're too full, all that sort of stuff. Well, here's an opportunity. Campgrounds definitely thin out in the fall. And it's not just because it's cold, but it's also because, kids are back to school, and there are going to be, for those of you that are I don't want the kids screaming at my campground people, the kids are back in school, so you don't have to worry about that as much.
But don't be those people.
Don't be those people.
Don't be those people. I think a lot of it has to do too with the beginning of not just kids going back into school, but we're starting to, especially when we're seeing a real strong change of the season for those of us that are prepping for the winter season, you start to sort of hibernate a little bit. You start to get that vibe of, I want to wear the cozy sweater. I want to light my pumpkin spice candle. For some of us, it starts the beginning of the rewatch of the Great British Bake Off. Like maybe some of us are currently in season 2. You get a little cozy. All of those things are really wonderful. We're kind of getting into that phase where we know it's going to be dark at 4:45. Like we know, I know, right? What's really great about all of that, though, is that cozy hibernating feel can still happen at the campground. In fact, it is elevated in the most delightful way at the campground. And it is going to be a little bit quieter. Weekends might still be busy.
Yeah, I remember when we started off doing this, when we started RVing, that was right around campgrounds. Commercial campgrounds had just really discovered Halloween.
Yeah.
they started to hear from
Yeah.
other campgrounds that, we're drawing in a lot of people for Halloween events. So they are doing them.
Will bring their, families will bring their kids to the campground for a Halloween weekend.
Yeah,
what
lot
a
of times
great
they'll
way
have
to do that.
And it's not necessarily on Halloween. Often these events are on the weekends throughout October. So it's often like an additional opportunity for kids to go trick-or-treating at a campground. And, they'll have things like hayrack rides, apple cider, and all that sort of stuff. And it can be a really fun time at a campground. And so a lot of campgrounds that traditionally may have closed, at Labor Day, have extended their season into the end of October or beyond. And there's a lot of data that goes into this too. We've talked about many times on this show, the KOA annual camping report. that they sponsor, they put a lot of money into market research to figure out what some of the trends are amongst campers. And shoulder season camping has really taken off in the last decade. So this is a big time where, the campgrounds are a little bit lighter in the number of people that are going to them, but there is still a lot of interest in it, and there are more people doing it. Now there are more resources and opportunities, like more open campgrounds.
Yeah,
to do it
I
with.
think you might find that a private campground that's going to have the holiday festivities, especially around in the month of October, is going to be a little bit busier than perhaps if you're going to your state park or your county park, or you're headed into some federal campgrounds. The places that are going to offer activities that are going to draw families for the weekend, for sure, they're going to continue to be probably busy until November 1st, because kids aren't really thrilled. Kids don't look at Thanksgiving the same way they look at Halloween. Let's just put it like that. No kid's like, oh man, I can't wait to get my hands on those green bean casserole. So I do think some of this is a little subjective. And I want to make sure that we're really clear. We're not talking about winter camping in the sense that we recognize that those warmer states come winter are going to see a lot of snowbird activity, and those are they're going to be busy. You're going to see Florida. It's peak season for a lot of the Southwest, for a lot of the South. So that is not what we're talking about here. We're still pre-snowbird season when we're talking October, November, and even into December. It really amps up.
And it's not so cold that you have to be in southern Arizona or southern California or Florida.
I mean, I know for us, the really miserable winter months here are January, February, and March. It's just miserable. I cannot wait for the Super Show, because that means I get out of Illinois for 2 weeks. I get to go down to Florida where it's much warmer. So this is really about fall camping. You're still potentially experiencing, for those of us in this area, you're experiencing temps that are going to be in the 70s. We know that down in the Southwest and the South, it's still warm down there.
And if you're up in the mountains, or if you're up in the far north, it's getting colder already. I mean, there are places where people do have to be winterized now at this point.
Well, when we were in North Dakota back in 2019, when we were in Minot, we had substantial snowfall early October.
In October, we were going through 2 20-pound bottles of propane every 3 days.
3 days or so.
Yeah.
So it's all very geographical. So if you have that vacation time saved up, it's really great to bank it in October and into November, because you can get some really primo camping spots. I mean, I know that we were in the Las Vegas area in November of 2022 around Thanksgiving. And we were able to get into some of the campgrounds around there that are usually quite busy. Red Rock, for instance, was amazing. Yeah. It was so beautiful that time of year. And the campground was busy, but it wasn't packed. And we were able, on a first come, first served, find a place for a 43-foot fifth wheel.
Yeah. So if you're folks that don't like to be around people as much, or at least for this camping trip, you don't want to be around people, and you like to be a little bit more serendipitous about where you go, you can have some more opportunities when it comes to site selection and campground selection, and getting to some of these places that are frankly hard to get to become a little bit easier in the shoulder seasons.
Yeah, I love that you put on there ideal for introverts and people needing tranquility. So there is a lot, when you look at this first one, the campgrounds are thinning out, and here's a lot of reasons why. It is a really great time to start looking at some of those more popular campgrounds and going out there and enjoying them without maybe all the hustle and bustle that you would see during peak season.
Yeah. It's also reason number 2, peak campfire season. It's the best time to have a campfire. And if you're not a campfire person, it's also kind of the best time to grill outside, because you're not dealing with the heat. Obviously, it's nicer to have a campfire when it's a little bit cooler. It's nicer to cook outside, whether that's over a campfire or on your grill when it's a little bit cooler outside. So you're not dealing with the heat blasting in your face all the time. It's also really great to wake up on a mountain morning and cook a breakfast over a campfire in the fall. There's just something about that smell, not only of the campfire, but of of the woods and all that, the streams. There's just something wonderful about the smell of that time that we absolutely love, right?
Absolutely. When we were out for our 6-week trip this summer, we were in the Southeast with extreme humidity, extreme heat. The last thing we wanted to do was sit around a campfire at 7 or 8 o'clock at night when the temperatures were still in the 90s and the humidity was still almost at peak. And so this is the time of year where the temperatures are dropping and there's just nothing more enjoyable than getting a campfire going, snuggling up with a blanket around it, and having that, just because it's getting darker earlier now too, you really get the beauty of that campfire as you're sitting out there around, surrounded by the woods or out there in the desert. And it's one of those things that, for me personally, I'm not really a person that'll just fire up a campfire at any time, anywhere. For me, it's all about sort of the environment in which it happens, right? And this is the time of year when I crave being back out in the RV around a campfire. I think about when we were at City of Rocks. Like, I just shared a reel recently of that site that we had at City of Rocks. And we were there around this time of year and we had that massive site. Remember that you go up the hill from our site. We have our big 43-foot fifth wheel in its site, but then the sort of communal area for the site was up a hill and then surrounded by all these giant boulders. And we put our solo stove there and we had created this whole little communal living area. And we had those fires going at night and it was so beautiful and peaceful. And the skies were so amazing.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this is a time of year to where stuff is a little bit drier. So you do want to pay, of course, extra attention to the rules in the area. If campfires are allowed, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, forest fires have become a real problem in the last decade. And, you shouldn't be having fires anywhere that you're not supposed to, of course. But be extra cautious, even if the rules allow it. And you want to do things like rake the leaves and any vegetation away from your campfire, at least a good 3 feet, so that you don't have sparks lighting leaves on fire, all that sort of stuff. So just be extra careful about where and when you're having campfires, and, consider using a propane fire as well. If that's something that you have or are interested in doing, it's a really great option if you don't want to deal with all of the hustle and bustle of actually having a full-on campfire.
Firewood, please make sure if you are doing a campfire that it is fully out before you retire for the night. That's kind of the nice thing about a propane fire pit, is that once it's off, it's off. But you do need to make sure, if you're going to go with a solo stove or you're going to use the fire pit provided at the campground, it is 100% out.
Of course, the same thing goes with charcoal grills too.
Of course.
Same deal. Yeah.
So before you're out for the night, please make sure that your campfire is.
Harvest Host is a membership that allows RVers to take a rest from the road and enjoy unlimited overnight stays at over 5,100 unique locations in North America, like breweries, farms, attractions, wineries, and much more. Easily plan and book your next RV trip and enjoy over $1,500 in exclusive member benefits by joining Harvest Host. Get 15% off your first year of membership with the code MILES. That's MILES. Go to harvesthost.com to become a Harvest Host member today. Okay, reason number 3, fall. This is the hardest word for me. Fall foliage. I got it. Fall foliage and scenic beauty. Not leaf peeping, because I hate that term.
Yeah, you won't use that one. I want to get you a t-shirt that says I'm a leaf peeper.
No,
are you?
I won't wear it.
Fall foliage is what I would say, but you say foliage.
Yeah, you're making up a word.
Am I making up a word?
Yes.
I'm fine with that. It's not the first time, won't be the last time.
Some people say foliage.
I mean, it's the same as
it's foliage.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So in a lot of places in the country right now, it is stunning.
Or it's the beginning of stunning. It's about to be stunning, right?
Yeah. So right now it's a lot of the north. Up in the Northeast, they are getting peak colors right now. We will not see it here in Western Illinois for probably another few more weeks, about the time actually that we take our little mini getaway for our anniversary.
Yeah.
It should hit peak right there.
It's going to be great because we're going to be in one of the best towns for that, Galena, Illinois.
It's going to be wonderful.
But this is something that, if you don't know, they forecast when the peak leaf changing is going to be in different areas. So you can actually look at a map and see where should I go, what weekends are going to be a good opportunity for me to see some of the best colors out there. And it's not just about the leaves. There's other stuff happening as well too, that animals are often more active in the fall because they're preparing for winter. Different types of animals are. Some animals are in the rut, which means they're more visible often, but also means you want to stay away from them a little bit more. Different birds are migrating at that time instead of, what you might see in the spring or the summer. So it can be a really interesting way to go see an area that you might know in a little bit different way.
There are a lot of road trip suggestions out there on how you can go out with your RV and have an experience that is absolutely tailored to following the changing of the colors throughout the country. It is really one of those visually amazing experiences to stand sort of like on a peak somewhere and be able to look out and just see it, the most stunning, and what is the true color of the leaves on these trees. Yeah. And it is really,
when you see like the aspen trees turn yellow, oh goodness.
I can't get enough of this time of year when it comes to camping. Can you tell that we really, really like this time of year? I am so excited. We are leaving for Amana in just a few days. We're going to be in the RV for an entire week. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait. The corn will have been harvested by the time we get there too. So I
hope so.
It should be. It was last year.
Last year they did it while we were there.
Oh, I thought it was gone because I was like, I thought I remember getting there and being like, don't gotta worry about that corn sweat.
It was gone.
By the time we left.
It was gone by the time that the event started, but we got to Amana early and it was because the campground is surrounded literally by cornfields.
But we're coming a little bit later this year.
We're a little bit later. We've seen harvesting happening. I'm pretty sure it'll all be gone by because it kicks up a lot of dust when they do the harvest. It's very close. But what's cool too about that is once they've harvested, you see like lots of hawks coming looking for mice that maybe have been like hidden by the corn over the time. And there's a lot of, again, it's a different type of wildlife activity that you get to see. So last year, I remember I really enjoyed watching the hawks.
You enjoyed watching the hawks take out the mice. I did too, because it meant that they weren't going to come into my camper.
So this is also a great time of year to go hiking, of course. So another reason to go on a camping trip somewhere. But even if you're not going to go on a camping trip, this is a great time of year to go hiking because, of course, you're not hiking in the hot heat. Right. You have more ability to regulate your temperature if you're doing something strenuous. You don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to avoid the heat, for instance. And there's going to be fewer bugs. Of course, that applies at the campground as well. But there's fewer bugs this time of year. This is probably the best reason to go fall camping.
Bye-bye.
Is that you're not going to get bit up by mosquitoes in most places. So it is. And I think maybe worst for me is the biting flies. So you don't have to deal with a lot of that if you go at the right time. So that's a really nice thing, especially on a hike, I think, but also just sitting around at the campground.
Absolutely. And I love this. We have done some really epic hikes as a family in shoulder season. And I come back to this place a lot because, there's two places I come back to when it comes to kind of hiking and some fall experiences that we've had that I just really feel are core memories for our family. That is when we did Custer State Park back in, I believe it was 2020. Yeah, it would have been 2020. And then when we were in Zion in 2018, we loved Zion and shoulder season so much back in 2018 that we were there first in April and then we came back again in October.
A lot of people don't realize that there is a lot of greenery in Zion because it is a valley. There's a the Virgin River goes through the
Yes.
middle of the valley, and down in the valley are all of these trees, and the bushes, the trees, they all change color. There's the mule deer that are gnawing on them.
It's beautiful. I mean, the lodge itself has this enormous, huge tree, or at least the last time we were there, this beautiful big tree was there out on the main lawn. But just being a Custer State Park, I mean, being in, the Black Hills and the Badlands this time of year, I can't recommend it enough. That is such an incredible place to spend a few weeks in the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're driving Iron Mountain Road or Needles Highway, and you're
seeing all that change.
It's just gorgeous.
It's really incredible. Yeah. Theodore Roosevelt National Park too. Although we did have one of the worst hikes of our
we don't need to go. Not
lives there. It was wet snow, heavy winds. And we tried to force something to happen that shouldn't have. And
I was dang determined that family was going to do that hike.
That's an important thing to think about when you are going fall camping, is that the weather can be unpredictable. It can change. You can have super cold days that you have to deal with, and you might even have snow to deal with, and you might have to change up those plans. Whereas, rain on a hot summer day might be welcome sometimes. Rain when it's 40 degrees out is not, for sure.
So layers are your best friend this time of year. So hiking is fantastic in the fall. I mean, not only are you getting the views, you're getting the cooler temps. The trails are often a little bit quieter. That, the parking lot is a little bit easier to get into, just some of these things, but also just experiences like that in general, not necessarily hiking, but there could be some parks, especially if it's getting on the, back end of fall and it's definitely getting a little bit cooler. You're only hitting, maybe highs in the upper 40s and 50s. Those particular parks in that area are really going to see a decrease in visitors.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that is going to give you an opportunity to maybe experience some places where you get to feel like you have that whole trail to yourself. I mean, there is nothing like being in a park, especially one that you've heard so often is just so crowded all the time. And, you can't take a step to the left without running into someone. And being in that park and really feeling like you are the only person there.
Yeah.
It is absolutely magical. I hope that everyone gets to experience that at least once. So our final reason, because I got to go pack up this RV and go get some fall camping going because I am chomping at the bit for it now. Our final reason is that RVs are actually more comfortable to be in this time of year, especially when it comes to sleeping.
You can always put more blankets on. You can always put more clothes on. You can't always take more clothes off.
Well,
right?
You can, but you do get to a point where there's nothing left.
More to take off, right?
You better be with people who don't mind that when they wake up.
You don't have to run the air conditioner as often or at all. So especially if you're boondocking, then the furnace might be something you can run off batteries, but your generator even, but you don't want to run an air conditioner off that or can't. That's an option for you. You at nighttime you can just put the blankets on in the fall often and not even worry about having to turn the heat on, but also don't have to have the air conditioner popping on and off all night, which wakes me up. It can get pretty chilly, but if you have thick comforters on and stuff, you can stay pretty darn warm.
Yeah. You get a sleeping bag onesie and you're fine. You're fine. I would say too that fall camping, and we will probably say this again in early spring, this is peak boondocking time.
Yeah.
This is when boondocking is at its finest. Yeah. It is gorgeous inside your rig. You get a little bit of sunshine in there. Again, I keep going back to Zion because we did not only did we have time in the park, but then we went out and we boondocked in Bussy for like a week outside of the park.
Yeah.
And that was peak. That was such an incredible amount of views and temperatures and just the environment itself. And a lot of that was on our way up to Alaska as well. I mean, it was kind of like fall weather for us really the whole time we traveled through Alaska last summer. And that is why I think boondocking was so successful for us on that trip, because the temperatures were perfect. They were just warm enough during the day, but they got cool enough at night that, yeah, maybe the propane heater kicked on a few times, but those lower temps helped keep the inside of the rig cool throughout the day.
Yeah, your refrigerator is working less, so you're using less electricity on that. There's all sorts of electrical savings when it's not as hot out and it's not too cold out, when it's sort of just right. Now, this is probably a good point to talk about some tips for fall camping, because I think one of the reasons that people are scared of camping in the shoulder season is that they are afraid of planning a trip and they get out there and they're going to have freezing temps overnight. And then what do you do? If you don't want to winterize, you don't want to worry about having to deal with your water lines freezing up in your RV. And that is certainly a concern. So what I would start off by saying is, if it's going to get down to 30 degrees, obviously freezing is at 32 degrees, right? If it's going to get down to 30 degrees or even 28 degrees at night, you don't have to worry about winterizing, especially if you're in the RV and running the heat. You're not going to have to worry about winterizing, at least if you have an enclosed underbelly. There, obviously, everybody has a different RV. Some of them have enclosed underbellies that are heated. Some of them don't. If you've got an enclosed underbelly and you're running the heat and it's heated under there, you can go pretty cool. I mean, we've gone as far as the upper teens, mid-teens is about where it's gonna freeze on you.
Yeah,
but
I would say too that a lot of that, because it really depends on when you're going to hit that cold. And usually that coldest part of the night is going to hit at about 5 a.m. So you're going to hit at that coldest part, 28 degrees or whatever, around 5 a.m. for the most part. Now, none of this is like exact.
It's not a science.
It's not a science.
It is a science, but it's it's based on anecdotal information on our part.
Yes. These are just experiences we've had. But it hits about 5 a.m. And then generally you're going to start to see sunrise about 2.5 hours later, depending on whether or not we've had the time change. So you're going to begin, that temperature is going to begin to climb almost immediately. And you're going to get out at least out of the freezing zone within a few hours. And if you are fortunate enough during this, and it makes a really big difference regarding the freezing of everything, whether or not you're camping in cloudy conditions or you're camping in sunny conditions, because once you get that sun that starts to come out and it starts to warm everything up, everything that's enclosed and underneath there is going to hold heat a little bit better.
It takes a few hours below freezing for something to freeze up. And,
well, yeah, because if you're talking about a 40-gallon water tank, we're not talking about like I set a cup of water outside or like, I'm trying to make ice.
And it's going to take a long time for a big water tank to freeze up. But the first thing that's going to freeze up on you is any water lines. Actually, the first thing that's going to freeze up on you is your water hose.
Yeah.
So the first thing we always tell people is if it's going to get below freezing at night, don't use a water hose. Or if you have a heated hose, you can use that. But fill up your tank and use your tank. And then if it's going to start getting really cold, if you're going to really start worrying about some of your water lines freezing up, well, then you can just not use the water system at all. You can go camping somewhere where you still have access to an open bathhouse and go use their bathhouse, for instance, or you can just use your toilet. Your toilet is going to be less problematic than most of the rest of your RV. And actually you can throw some antifreeze down there with it if you want to, but you can just drain your water system. You don't even have to winterize it. You can blow it out with air. If it's not, it's not going to be that sort of deep freeze type stuff. And you can just not use the water in your RV, use some water jugs for drinking and cooking and washing your hands and stuff like that, and use a bathhouse shower.
But now we're really getting into more winter camping.
But you gotta
really
be prepared
where,
for that.
yeah.
That's the thing. That's what concerns people, though, is like they've got a camping trip planned and, they're hoping that it's only going to be down into the 40s at night. But if it is going to end up getting down into, the upper 20s at night, that's something that could happen and that you do want to be somewhat prepared for, unless you're just like, okay, well, I'm going to try it in I can always just give up and go back home if it's going to get too cold.
Yeah.
It just depends on where you're going, how far you're going, all that sort of stuff. But it's something to think about and have a little bit of a plan for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So cold weather, is there any other tip we would really want to share that we haven't kind of already talked about?
Well, the one thing is if you're wanting to keep your rig as warm as possible inside, there are some things that you can do to make sure that you don't have a lot of the warmer air escaping. So make sure you're closing the vent that is for your that's for your stove, right? A lot of us have a stove vent on the outside that can open and close. A lot of people don't even realize that thing snaps open and closed, but it does.
It does.
You can close that up to keep air from getting out. You can, if you've got skylights, stuff like that, that's really thin material, you can shove a pillow up in there. You can put some insulation on your windows. A lot of the cold is going to escape through the windows. There are things like that you can do, or just keep your blinds and curtains closed, and that's going to help insulate things as well. You can think about how you park your RV, especially if you're boondocking or if you're choosing a campsite so that you know the sun is going to hit it first thing in the morning, so you can warm it up really quick without having to spend a lot of propane on it, all that sort of stuff. And then, maybe consider upgrading your batteries. If you don't have an upgraded battery, you can even just get one 100 amp hour lithium battery. That should probably be enough for you to really get some use out of your furnace.
So there are our reasons and a few tips as to why we think camping in the fall is probably hands down our favorite time of year to camp.
It's like spring, but spring can be beautiful, but it's only beautiful in late spring, because early spring still looks like winter. Fall is just beautiful.
Early spring is nothing more than like, hi, here's one 70-degree week. I'm going to remind you of what's coming. And then I'm going to fall off and disappear. And I'm going to return back to 40-degree temperatures and really cold rain.
We have fake fall here and return to summer and second summer. And
we do. But fake spring is so cruel, because you have been living in wind chills of -20 for weeks now. And fake spring shows up and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys, we did it. We made it. And then it's like, no, you didn't.
I'll never forget when we went camping in the Great Smoky Mountains in the spring. And we were like, oh, it's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be, all the flowers and all that sort of stuff. And we went too early. And it just looks like, dead trees. And it rained the whole time, and it was cold, and it just looked like winter.
And we were in a tent.
It was still wonderful, but
it was great.
Had we gone 2 weeks later, it would have been a lot nicer.
It was March 2014. We had a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and we were in a tent. And we did it. We did it for a week. I woke up about every 45 minutes to make sure that everyone was still warm. I would get up. I would make sure blankets were over little people. And we did it, but don't recommend it. Just wait a couple more weeks if you're in areas where it likes to have fake spring.
Find out from people what it's going to look like at certain times of the year and learn and then decide.
But what are your tips? We would love to know the reasons or the tips why you think fall camping is one of the best times of years to go out and experience the RV lifestyle. You can let us know if you're watching this on YouTube. You can just let us know right there in the comment section, or you can come over to the RV Miles Facebook group and you can share your thoughts over there with not only us, but 13,000 other incredibly nice RVers. We would love to hear your thoughts on our thoughts and on this discussion as well. All right, Jay, it is time to check the level of our tanks. And as always, this segment is sponsored by our friends over at Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the no BS toilet treatment. If you're coming to homecoming, you're going to be leaving with some Liquefied. You can find out more about Liquefied at liquefiedrv.com or head over to Amazon and search for it there. I realized, and you brought this up to me, we flipped the script last week.
Yeah.
And did your fresh tank first, didn't we? Just didn't even notice. Yeah. Like, that's just how we roll sometimes. So Jason, let's go back to the original. What is in your black tank this week?
Okay. So
because I'm very curious about this. I want
to be diplomatic about this, and I don't want to sound, again,
oh boy.
This is the second week in a row that I'm trying to not be elitist as it comes to content creators and podcasters and YouTubers in this industry. But there are some folks out there doing some stuff on YouTube in particular, and this isn't new. This has been going on for a while, that are just making stuff up about the RV industry. The RV, we try to be...
Welcome to 2021, Jason. We're so glad you're here.
We try to be... we're not shills for the RV industry, but we're also very positive about some things. We know it's a complicated industry. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of issues where some manufacturers don't take care of their customers very well. There are a lot of issues with quality. And we take the approach that not all the manufacturers are the same. First of all, they all do different things. They all have strengths and weaknesses. It is a complex industry. And, there are things that we want to cover that aren't about that. And then sometimes we want to cover that. And there's just all sorts of different aspects of this industry that we're covering. So we're not always going to be saying, caveating everything that we say with something about that manufacturer, about, something negative they've done in the past or something positive they've done in the past. But anyway, there are some folks out there that know enough to be dangerous, right? There is a channel that I watched the other day, a person who was talking about, and I'm not going to name names. Sorry.
We're only going to spill like a little bit of the tea. We're not going to spill the full tea, apparently, because I don't even know who he's talking about.
This person was just randomly making stuff up about how sales at the Hershey RV show were just absolutely terrible. And that's such a big sign for what's to come in the RV industry. And that's just, it's patently untrue. It's verifiably untrue. The Hershey RV show, actually, a lot of brands, it's a complex industry. I'm sure some brands didn't do great. Some did better, but a lot of brands had really, really good sales at the Hershey RV show. Attendance was up. And that's just one example. I've heard this person make up stuff all the time, and this person comes off as they present themselves as an expert on the RV industry.
Yes.
Right.
Now I know who you're talking about.
But there are other people. That person's not the only one. There are other people that are doing this where they're saying things that sound true or close to true. They have evidence of things, but then making key points entirely up. So let me say, if anybody you're watching on YouTube or listening to is like, they're talking about how like a manufacturer hit them with a cease and desist order, but they won't name who the manufacturer was or show it. That's probably not something that actually happened, right?
Probably not true.
If they're saying that they're causing big change in the RV industry because you're listening to them and the stuff, the information they're putting out there is fixing everything. They're not.
No, somebody needs to clip those wings. That's not happening.
They're not blacklisted. They're not I mean, to an extent, like if you're out there bad mouthing everybody, nobody's going to want to work with you. And that makes sense. I mean, if I'm out there bad mouthing Walmart's not going to be like, let me advertise on your podcast or something like that. And that's fine.
That's fine. I mean, Camping World doesn't come knocking here for a reason.
No, that just goes with the territory. I mean,
doesn't happen.
We vet and work with people that we generally find to take good care of our listeners, because that's what matters to us. And, they fall down sometimes. It doesn't always work out. There are mistakes made and things happen, but just be careful about, of course, this seems like it's obviously such a small potatoes thing, this little corner of the world that we have, this RV industry thing. But in general, in life, of course, just be careful about where you're getting your information from and not just taking for granted what people are saying, because again, they're just completely making it up for no other reason than just to get clicks on a video, to be able to put a headline on something. when you're making something up like that, and I'm all for calling out things that are happening that are wrong and that need to be fixed and all that sort of stuff. But if you do it without facts or made up facts, then you're only making the situation worse, and you're making it harder for any problems to ever be solved because nobody knows what's true and what's not true.
I think there's a really good rule to follow here, is that if anyone is using massive absolutes in every single video that they put out, or they're making claims that run so far one direction or so far into another direction, most likely that is not what's truly happening. And if you go and you spend a little bit of time doing your own research on the subject, you will often find that it is actually somewhere a little bit more in the middle. There is very rarely some of the super extreme claims that get made in this industry. Very rarely are those claims 100% true. And I think what's so disappointing about people who choose clicks over community is that they are turning off so many people to this lifestyle, or they are pushing so many people away who have been in this lifestyle just so that they can earn, no joke, maybe $500 on that video.
It's the easiest thing to do is to spit fire and get people to click on it. It's
100%.
It's the easy, and that's something, that we could do. It's not how we conduct ourselves as people in this world, right? We like to tell the truth. And I think that's really important in this day and age when truth seems to have so many meanings. And, there's some truth to that. Like that's one of my, the most important things to me when I look at these news stories and I try to cover stuff in a reasonable way. There's always the saying, well, there's two sides of the story. No, there's often 20 sides to the story. And it's not always that one person is right and one person is wrong. Sometimes both are right. Sometimes both are wrong.
I mean, when it comes to this industry, 100%.
When it comes to anything,
I'll argue with you a few things that are like, no, that's right, well, and that should be right, and that's how it should be. Period.
Of course, there's lots of stuff that there's lots of stuff that someone is right about, but more often than people realize, though, both people having an argument about something are wrong in some way, at least about some aspect about it,
yeah.
And both people are probably right in some way about certain aspects about it as well. It's just an opinion is not a fact. A fact is not an opinion. Facts matter. And if we're making up facts, we can't form reasonable opinions about things. So let's have a baseline of what is an actual fact and follow that fact. And I know we're talking about YouTubers here.
I know.
And that's an uphill battle. I just people be careful about who you listen to.
It's an amazing way to look at things, Jason. It's an amazing way. All right. What is in your fresh tank this week?
So this is a unit that I saw at open house that I didn't get to cover, mainly because I'm dumb and I just didn't have the camera out and I didn't shoot it. But and I keep talking to people about, this is one I really loved, and I didn't take any photos of it. So I got them to send me photos if you're watching the video version, so I can now talk about it. But I can talk about it if you're just listening to the audio version, explain it too. This is a new line from the folks at Palomino RV. Palomino makes trailers, and the Puma brands are under theirs. You may know we covered they made the Pause trailer, which is really cool. And they make lots of truck campers as well. They're really one of the biggest manufacturers of truck campers, of slide-in truck campers. What they've come out with is a new line of trailers called the OVE. They only have one now. The first one is called the OVE 15.1. And what they did was they took a traditional truck camper floor plan where, you've got that bed raised in the back that would go over the cab of the truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you enter the door there's a door in the back where on the left is going to be a bathroom. On the right, there's usually a little dinette. That typical truck camper floor plan, they decided, well, let's turn this into a travel trailer. And where the truck cab would go instead, they put 2 bunks. So you've got a queen bed, and underneath it is 2 bunks. And then you've got the traditional rest of the truck camper. So what you get out of this thing, and it's got a pop top as well. What you get out of this is a 19-foot travel trailer that weighs, I think, 3,700 pounds. 3,250 pounds.
Wow.
19-foot long.
Wow.
That you can tow with almost anything. I mean, at least anything that can tow 5,000 pounds, you could comfortably tow this with, and it can fit into a garage because it's got that pop top on it. So I think this is like a really great option for folks who want to have something to tow around that is small, but don't like the sort of traditional fold out pop-up camper, which have really gone downhill in sales. Unfortunately, I think they're really cool, but this is a sort of a new option for that type of person. I would love to see them do a version of this that doesn't have the pop top and just has a hard roof that would allow you a little bit more cabinet space. It would, allow you a little bit more access to it when you're trying to load it up and all that sort of stuff. It'd be a little bit heavier. You wouldn't be able to put it in a garage, but it'd probably still be under 5,000 pounds. And I just think it's a unique, interesting floor plan for the folks that just want to have a comfortable place to sleep at a campground. And they're going to spend their time outdoors and all that sort of stuff. But this is kind of an even smaller version of our 25-foot Ibex, right?
I'm having a lot of fun with the innovation that's happening right now in the RV industry. Some of it may never really come to fruition and we may not see it continue on, but I just enjoy seeing people try new things, feel excited about their jobs, go in there looking for problems that they can solve. I think it's a really fun time creatively for the RV industry.
It's no doubt an industry that's hurting. And what that means is more competition, and competition means innovation. And this is going to be an exciting time over the next couple of years as the brands compete with each other for your dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What is in your black tank this week?
So my black tank, I just really want to acknowledge a lot of the devastation that has happened from Hurricane Helene. I know that we're all very much aware of it. From an RV standpoint, there are campgrounds out there, in Western North Carolina in particular, that have just been absolutely devastated. Small mom and pop campgrounds that have just, it's truly horrific. And I just want to spend a few seconds to ask, if you have a couple of dollars in your back pocket, please consider donating to somewhere like the American Red Cross or any of the other agencies that are trying to get in there and help the people in Tennessee and North Carolina and there in the Southeast who have been absolutely devastated. We will put, for those of you watching on YouTube, actually we'll put it in even on the podcast description, a couple of sites that we recommend that we ourselves will be donating to in order to help with the relief effort there. And then really consider, certainly, maybe next year, maybe the year after that, maybe consider taking a trip in your RV to those areas to really help those people bounce back and recover.
Certainly not anytime soon.
No, please don't go now. I'm not asking you to go now.
If you have fall trips to places that are in any of the affected areas, at least make sure that you're going to areas that have recovered or want your recovery, because there's going to be roads closed for weeks and weeks and weeks. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, of course, is the most visited national park in the country by double. And it has been really hit hard. These areas are, especially the eastern, especially the Western North Carolina area, they're not used to really much severe weather at all, right? They're sort of an area where they don't normally get anything from hurricanes. They get some storms. They don't get tornadoes, all of that sort of stuff. They don't even get the worst of the snowstorms, and what hit them is not something that any structure was built to ever see, where somewhere like Florida, you've got laws about, of course, there's horrible devastation often when a hurricane hits, but at least structures are, a lot of them, designed to withstand some of it. These are places that never expected to see flooding, anything like this. So this is going to take a long time for some of these areas to recover. A lot of people have been saying that the devastation from this hurricane is only matched in recent memory by Hurricane Katrina.
A loss of life is one life too many, but even the fact that when we see some of the images that come out of there, and I think at this point we're up to about 106 people, but I know that there are thousands or hundreds, if not thousands, that are currently still missing or just unaccounted for at this point. And it is really devastating. And if there is something, that we can do from an RV community standpoint, be that immediately or in the future, do consider in the future as you look to your 2026 plans or even into your 2027 vacation plans, consider heading to those areas if they're ready to receive us again and kind of helping them build back in that way. It's really been shocking to see some of the images that are coming out of there. And I know that right now, as we talk about this, there's a hurricane that's already formed. There's a hurricane, I think it's been named Kirk, has formed. It seems to be in the exact same area that Helene had formed. And I think that there is another one that's, and again, I might be messing up all the names, but I do know that we've got a hurricane that has formed again. And I know that there's the potential for some area that they're watching for another one to form. So this isn't over yet for all of our friends that experience hurricane season. So
there's so much more that they're dealing with too beyond that. It's everything that comes after that with like all the electricity out and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got the dock worker strikes happening, which is going to make it harder to get supplies to some of these places. Just all sorts of stuff is hitting the South right now that I definitely don't envy, of course, but it's really disheartening to see such a large portion of our country going through all this.
It's disheartening, but let's stand up and support them in whatever way that we can, in whatever way you as the listener or watcher can do, whatever that is. Let's stand up and let's support these people. Let's let them know that they're not alone. And so that when they do get to a point where this isn't just crisis management, we can be there to offer them even more support after I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know. This is going to be, it's not going to be next week. It's not going to be a month. It's just horrific.
Yeah.
So,
there's so many people that live so rurally in some of these areas that are just completely cut off and still don't have access to anything yet. It's wild.
Yeah. So we continue to think about everybody, but we're also continuing to actively try and find ways that we can support without interfering in the really important work that is needing to happen there without disrupting.
Is if there was a way for maybe this is something for like campground associations to think about trying to organize, because a lot of people have some favorite campgrounds in some of these areas that were really hit hard. If there's a way for people to sort of prepay future reservations for some of these places so that they can get a little cash to help them. If there was a way for some of those organizations to help organize that as they should,
I do know that OHI, which is the Organization of Outdoor Hospitality thank you.
Industry Association. Yeah.
They have a relief fund.
Yeah.
And I know that I just saw an email that came from them, reaching out to all of the people in their organization to continue to consider donating. I don't know if that is something that you can do unless you're a part of the organization. You can receive the relief funds regardless if you are a part of the Outdoor Hospitality
Industry, yeah.
Regardless, if you're a part of the outdoor hospitality industry, you can apply and receive those funds. I will look a little bit more into that because that could be a way potentially. I don't know anything about it.
let's look into some options, and we'll circle back next week.
That is
not next week, in 2 weeks, because we're not going to have a podcast next week.
We'll share it on social media. I'll share it in the Facebook group too, if it's something that, those of us out there, because those funds go directly towards supporting campgrounds in that industry or in that area. I mean, that need immediate help and support. So we'll look more into that. We'll share that across. And if that is something that you can help, the outdoor hospitality industry support our friends out there in the Southeast who've been devastated by this hurricane, please consider doing that.
What's in your fresh tank this week?
So my fresh tank is a cookbook. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I am a big fan of Danielle Walker. She has the Against All Grains, was her first cookbook. I think she's had 5 or 6 since then. Her most recent one is called Make It Easy. It just came out a few weeks ago. I just got my hands on it. And the reason why I really wanted to share it here on the podcast is because I think that this is her most accessible cookbook that she's ever done. It's really been interesting to watch her trajectory from her first cookbook, where you needed 750,000 things in order to make a loaf of bread, to this cookbook now where you need 5 or 6 items. This is a paleo-friendly cookbook. So we're talking no gluten, no dairy for the most part. But this one in particular is focused on make ahead meals. So freezer prep, or just prepping, 1 day a week as you go into the week. Really about creating easily accessible meals that you can prep ahead of time, that when it comes time to make them, you're pulling all these things out and you're getting it done. And if that does not sound like campground friendly cooking for the paleo world, I don't know what to tell you, but I have loved this cookbook. It is probably my most favorite of hers so far. I haven't cooked anything out of it yet. Like I said, I just got my hands on it a couple days ago. But what she does in the cookbook too is she has 14 weeks worth of menus, and she goes in and she does week by week. She will give you 4 items and then something she calls like her back pocket, which is like a really quick, easy one-off that you could make with your pantry staples and a few things you might have left over from that week's meal plans. She meal plans it out. She writes out the grocery list for you. She sets the days that you need to prep everything. And it is, I think, if you are someone who has sensitivities, if you are living with gluten or dairy restrictions, it can sometimes feel a little intimidating and a little boring from an RV camping standpoint to make the same sort of like 5 things over and over. Yeah. And it can be very difficult to go out to eat if you are, gluten sensitive, if you are dairy sensitive, and downright to an allergy. It can be very difficult to find a place you can go to eat. I love this cookbook. I think that it's got incredibly easy and delicious looking recipes in it. I'm very excited for us to cook out of it. And I think it'll transfer really well.
She does a really good job with stuff that, my thing, what I always talk to you about is like, when we try some of the, we try removing things from our diet and following some different diets, just to figure out what is working for us and what isn't.
Yeah.
I don't love a lot of fake stuff. Like, don't give me fake cheese. I'd rather just not have cheese on the thing. Right. Sure. But first of all, paleo is a great type of diet for that kind of person, I think, because it's really just what people would have eaten 100 years ago. It's not much processed and all that sort of stuff. But she does a fantastic job of her recipes are, it's not a lot of, for me, we're trying to make a burger feel like a burger, and it's not a burger.
A cheeseburger feel like a cheeseburger, or mac and cheese feel like mac and cheese.
Let's just do something different.
She certainly has those recipes, she has those, but for sure.
But the ones that aren't that are very good about this is just a great meal that happens to fit this diet.
Yeah.
That would be served at any restaurant anywhere. Right?
Yeah, I really like her a lot. She has managed to carve out a space for herself in this world that is really her own space, in the sense that, a long, long time ago, like back when Ethan was born, 2010s, I was such a big fan of Ree Drummond, Pioneer Woman. Loved her. Loved that this was a homeschooling mom who had this website. She had this cookbook. And I really she was very accessible. And then unfortunately for her, and not unfortunately for her, because, fortunately for her, cha-ching, but she became a big Food Network star.
Yeah.
And everything about her changed. Her show became so big, everything, she was just kind of everywhere. And that what I loved so much about her, the just normalcy of her life and her, which, obviously in some respects was never very normal, but it appeared to be so that way in the beginning, disappeared. Yeah. And so Danielle has been now doing this for, I think, a little under 10 years. I'm not quite sure, maybe a little bit longer. And she has managed to just not, and I'm sure she would love if Food Network started, called her.
Yeah.
But they haven't.
No, because there's not a lot of money in alternative diets.
Thank you. Right? I mean, this is why Reed Drummond was so popular for them. She was like butter
diet pills. You could sell diet pills. There's a lot of money there. But
I mean, I'm glad to see.
We're in the podcast industry. That's what you do.
Listen,
you sell your diet pills.
Call me if you need if you need an RVer to push that seed. You call me.
But a lot of people RV because they have dietary needs. A lot of people have severe dietary needs, and we've talked to several RVers that they have a kid that has like crazy specific food allergies that make it nearly impossible for them to eat at any restaurant. So they have to have a kitchen with them at all times. Like sure. it's a RVing, I think, is a great way for a lot of people to be able to travel around with a kitchen and a pantry and be able to deal with some of their food allergies in a way that is harder to do if you're traveling by a plane and going to a hotel room.
Just trying to control the amount of sodium that goes into your body when you're eating out and buying processed food is really difficult. So anyway, the cookbook is called Make It Easy. I will link to it in the description for this episode. You can go check it out. I'm excited to start cooking from it. And I think it will be really, really great for RVers.
They reached out to us about coming on the show, and then it never happened.
I know.
I don't know.
We said we'd have you on the show, and you never got back to us. What is that all about? I will fangirl all over you. Come on the show.
That's it for this week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
Yes, it is. And hey, friends, as always, if you are enjoying the show, would you please head over to Apple Podcast and leave RV Miles a 5-star review? And if you want to get to hang out with Jason and I a little bit more, see maybe behind the curtain of what goes on here at RV Miles, we would love to invite you to become a Mile Marker member. One of the things we do for Mile Marker members is our weekly detour episode. That's the episode we're going to do literally right after we get done talking to you. We're going to start filming that. And this week, we are talking about what a typical week looks like here at RV Miles.
Is there one?
There is. And if you think it is anything but typical, you're going to want to listen to this episode because it is definitely not a typical week for RV Miles ever around here. But we're going to talk about it. So you can head over to rvmiles.com/milemarker. You can learn more about becoming a member there. We would love to welcome you into the community. We've got a lot of other fun things coming up. Poker night, trivia nights, book club. You get discounts to homecoming next year. Lots and lots and lots and lots. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Please remember, stay safe, get out there and enjoy fall camping because it is so perfect. And keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.